You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
2, 3, 4. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. We talk the whole night through. Good morning. Good morning to you. 2, 3, 4. Hey, we want to welcome you to the Bible Guys.
The only thing that would have made that better is if you would have done like a dance step right then, too.
Yeah.
2, 3, 4. Yep.
Hey, my name is Chris Zarba. This is Jeff Forrester, and we are two guys who work at a church in Michigan who are talking about the Bible today.
In fun and practical ways.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's what the Roland said.
Not in impractical ways.
Fun and
practical ways. Yes, very good. Hey, we're going to start off with my favorite. I think this is my favorite.
Your favorite segment?
As long as they're good jokes, but this is a dad joke competition.
Oh, okay.
And when they're super big, awful groaners, it is obviously not my favorite.
All right.
But usually they're pretty decent.
Okay.
Don't you agree?
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty decent usually. Mm-hmm. All right. You want to start?
A broken drum is the best present you can gift. Nobody can beat that.
Nobody can beat that.
Okay.
That's okay.
See what I did there?
Yeah.
Broken drum, nobody can beat it.
Yes.
Nobody can beat it.
How about this one? I was going to cook alligator for dinner, but I realized I only had one crock pot.
Okay. All right. Hey, not bad. Not bad. It's a groaner.
It was okay.
That's a groaner.
It's okay.
All right. What do priests say to get rid of insects in the church?
What?
Let us spray.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Let us spray.
Between the three, I like that one the best.
Okay, good.
How about this one? I noticed that my ironing board cover was wrinkles. What was wrinkles?
How about wrinkled?
Yeah, okay. I noticed that my ironing board cover had wrinkles and laughed at the irony, but then I laughed because the word was irony.
Okay. That's rough.
That was pretty
That
rough.
was a rough one. Nose jokes stink, but eye jokes are cornea. Oh no. That's rough.
That was rough too.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the priest one.
All right, how about this? People are usually shocked when they find out I'm not a very good electrician.
That's a good one.
I like
that one. That's a good one. That's a good one.
People get shocked.
Okay. Why are toilets so good at poker? What, we're telling toilet jokes now?
Why?
Because they always get a flush.
Oh,
that's a rough one.
That is rough.
That is rough.
But it'd be great to get a
Talking
flush
about stinking.
every time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, talk about stinking.
Yes.
Oh, boo. There's another pun.
There you go.
How about this one? What happens when a microscope crashes into a telescope?
I don't know.
A kaleidoscope.
Okay, that's a good one.
It is a really good
clever.
one.
That's clever.
Yeah.
I like this one.
A kaleidoscope.
Kaleidoscope. Get it?
Two scopes collide.
Yeah. A microscope and a telescope. They
kaleidoscope.
Kaleidoscope. Yeah, I get it. Okay, this one's clever.
Yep.
I love the way the Earth rotates. It just makes my day.
That is good.
That's a clever one.
It makes my
clever
day.
one.
It literally makes
It
your day.
literally makes my day.
How about this one? This is the last one for me. Oh, that was your last one.
Yes.
Okay, how about this one? Felt uncomfortable driving into the cemetery. The GP... This is really good. Let me start over. Felt uncomfortable driving into the cemetery. The GPS blurted out that you have reached your final destination. I really like that one a lot.
You've reached your final destination.
You've reached your final destination.
Yes.
That is really, really clever. That's funny.
Oh, boy.
Oh, mercy. All right. So we're jumping back, Jeff, into 1 Samuel chapter 25.
Yes. And David is still running from King Saul.
Yes.
At this point, he is in an area called Maon, which is in the area of what is modern-day Hebron, just south of Jerusalem. This would still be in the West Bank portion of Palestine. So it says, then David moved down to the wilderness of Maon, and there was a wealthy man from Maon who owned property near the town of Carmel. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and it was sheep-shearing time. This man's name was Nabal, and his wife, Abigail, was a sensible and beautiful woman. But Nabal, a descendant of Caleb, was crude and mean in all his dealings. When David heard that Nabal was shearing his sheep, he sent 10 of his young men to Carmel with this message for Nabal. Peace and prosperity to you and your family and everything you own. I'm told that it's sheep shearing time. While your shepherds stayed among us near Carmel, we never harmed them and nothing was ever stolen from them. Ask your own men and they'll tell you this is true. So would you be kind to us since we have come at a time of celebration? Please share any provisions you might have on hand with us and with your friend David. David's young men gave this message to Nabal in David's name, and they waited for a reply. Who is this fellow David? Nabal sneered to the young men. Who does this son of Jesse think he is? There are lots of servants these days who run away from their masters. Should I take my bread and my water and my meat and that I've slaughtered for my shearers and give it to a band of outlaws who come from who knows where? So David's young men returned and told him what Nabal had said. Get your swords, was David's reply as he strapped on his own. 400 men started off with David and 200 remained behind to guard their equipment. Meanwhile, one of Nabal's servants went to Abigail and told her David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, but he screamed insults at them. These men have been very good to us, and we never suffered any harm from them. Nothing was stolen from us the whole time they were with us. In fact, day and night, they were like a wall of protection to us and the sheep. You need to know this and figure out what to do, for there is going to be trouble for our master and his whole family. He's so ill-tempered that no one can even talk to him. Abigail wasted no time. She quickly gathered 200 loaves of bread and 2 wineskins full of wine, 5 sheep that had been slaughtered, and nearly a bushel of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 fig cakes. She packed them on donkeys and said to her servants, Go on ahead. I'll follow you shortly. But she didn't tell her husband Nabal what she was doing. As she was riding her donkey on a mountain ravine, she saw David and his army coming toward her. David had just been saying, a lot of good it did to help this fellow. We protected his flocks in the wilderness, and nothing he owned was stolen or lost. But he has repaid me evil for good. May God strike me and kill me if even one man of his household is still alive tomorrow morning. Where are we reading through? Verse 22. Okay. Well,
that's it. Well, what's the end of the story?
I can't tell you. No.
So his wife comes.
Do we read the rest of the story? We read the rest of the story tomorrow. Don't ruin it.
Oh, is that what happens?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's not talk about the ending, and let's talk about the fact that Nabal is kind of a jerk.
Yeah, kind of a jerk. All right. Well, we got that. Thank you for tuning in today.
Yeah,
Join us tomorrow.
And so don't be a jerk. Don't be a jerk like Nabal.
Yep.
It's interesting how.
Don't poke the bear either.
Yes.
Because David come on a warpath.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. We may hear that and we may sympathize perhaps with Nabal. We may think, well, Nabal was within his right. The law was on his side because technically the king, everybody knew, probably most likely in the kingdom, they sort of knew the feud, the jealousy of Saul and, Saul's slain in his thousands, David in his tens of thousands and things like this. But the law was on Nabal's side. They technically were outlaws, right? And so he was within his right to say, this is my personal property and I don't have to feed you if I don't want to. So we may sympathize. But we have to also understand that people in this region, number one, knew and understood which God that they served as a nation, right? And so they understood that David was a man of God. They understood everything that David had done. He knew his father was Jesse.
Right. He's acting like he doesn't know who David is and says, who's this son of Jesse? Right. Yeah, he knows who he is.
He knows everything about him. Mm-hmm. He knows his exploits. He knows the songs. He knows everything. And not only that, but, why would you ever bite the hand that feeds you? Why would you be ungrateful for somebody who was actually responsible for your prosperity?
Yeah.
So here is well known that his men protected his sheep and his goats. They were like a wall of protection, they said. And yet Nabal is just going to be selfish. That's really what it comes down to. He's looking for a reason. I'm going to use the law on my side to be selfish with my riches.
Yeah, because social custom in the Middle East, even still to this day, is when travelers come, you feed them.
It's demanded.
Right, you feed all of them.
You have to, yes.
And Nabal was rich. This guy was rich. I mean, 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. Typically, in pastoral places like that, one goat is worth a month's... bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Did you develop suddenly an allergy to me?
I'm allergic to goats.
To goats. I'm just mentioning goats, he sneezes. Yeah,
That's clever.
Yeah.
That's more clever than all of those father jokes.
That's exactly right.
Those dad jokes.
But one goat, typically in a pastoralist type of a society, is valued at about a month's income. And sheep are worth a little more.
Yeah.
So he's got 1,000 months worth of goats.
So
and 3,000
12 years of income.
No, 1,000 months. Yeah. So
120 years.
Yeah.
120 years.
83 years.
Well, math is math.
Yeah, math helps. Yeah. I got this little machine I carry in my pocket sometimes, and you can do math right on it.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with me trying to be independent of machines. I was trying to do math in my head.
Yeah. No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
So he's got 80 something right there, and then 3,000 sheep. And sheep usually would be considered a little bit more valuable than goats because you can shear them, which is shearing time now, and you don't have to eat the goats or eat the sheep. So the sheep will produce milk and meat if you want it, but they'll produce wool every year, and you can sell the wool. So they were worth a little bit more. So you're talking this guy had more wealth than he could ever spend in his lifetime.
Right.
Right? That's really where. So we're not talking about David rolling in with 600 men on a poor guy. We're talking about the richest guy in the area. The other thing is this, the fact that he's been able to prosper out on the plains. He's not inside of a walled city. You have to remember back in those days, they had walls around their cities because there's roving bandits outside the cities. It's the wild, wild west. It's, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It's all the bad guys you get. It's Wyatt Earp kind of world, right? Whereas it's gunslinging and fighting. They didn't have guns, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You had to fight in order to protect your stuff.
I'm just curious as to how many more 50-year-old references you're going to make.
Well, it's more than that. It's 150 years old. Butch Cassidy was 100.
I'm just saying, people our age are like, Wyatt Earp. Yeah. What'd you say?
Well,
Butch Cassidy
American history.
Sundance Kid?
It's American history.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay. All right, go ahead. Keep going.
So, again, you're thinking movies.
Well, it's a book. Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kids
they're real guys in history.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We read about them in books, and then it became movies.
Yeah.
I'm not just thinking about movies. I get it.
But you were thinking, Paul Newman.
Wyatt Earp is a movie.
Yeah. He was a real guy, too.
But it was also books.
Yeah. Well, history.
I get it. Yeah.
Before he was a book, he was a real person.
Wow.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's what it was back then, is they were just, if you weren't inside a walled city, you better be capable. Mm-hmm. This is, that you'd oftentimes build your own fortress. You'd have a lot of servants that could protect your animals. And then the servants were saying, David's 600 men were like a wall for us. Literally saying, we were always protected when we were around David's men. We'd never lost a sheep. They were always respectful. They protected us. And so David's rolling in and going, hey, we protected you. Quid pro quo kind of an idea here. Hey, we took care of your stuff. You're wealthy. It's shearing time. The only reason why you're able to shear all 3,000 of these sheep is because we made sure that nobody stole any of them. Right. So, hey, if you could share a meal with us.
And we also have to realize as well, we have to put ourselves in that culture and realize that to say no to them is in some ways to condemn them to starvation.
Right.
So they're out in the middle of nowhere. They go to Nabal for help, because, they're saying, hey, we're in the middle of the wilderness. Our men are hungry. Again, we don't want to impose greatly on you, but, the things that she packed up was a fraction, right? I mean, they only took, 5 slaughtered sheep?
Right.
5
right.
out of 1,000 or 3,000. Right. No, they had 3,000 sheep, right? And so 5 sheep. So it's just a fraction of the wealth. And so to say no is to say, go out to the wilderness and die. So we have to understand, too, from David's point of view, that this was in some ways an act of war, not of aggression, but rather just of, just throwing out every single custom out the window. It's disrespectful to David, disrespectful to him, the fact that he's the next anointed king. It's also saying, we would rather you die than for me to help you. It's just an insult on the highest levels.
Yeah.
So we may think, wow, they're going to go and not leave a single person alive. Are you kidding me? Right?
Yeah.
But that's really what it was. We have to understand, back then, we don't live in the Wild Wild West. That was an act of war. It was an insult upon him and his men. So, we may not understand it, but,
Well, Nabal was sentencing him to death. Not only him, but his 600 men. Right. There's the other side. I made a joke about it at the beginning, but don't poke the bear. Mm-hmm. There is having an awareness of your power versus the power of the people that you're squaring off with. There's a lot of wisdom in that. In negotiating, if you're in your job, you wind up having to negotiate. You have to understand where the power sits and how to shift the power you're in your way, but then also to respect give respect to where respect should be given, or honor to whom honor is due. And in this situation, you've got a farmer who has some servants, and you've got a warrior who killed a giant and has 600 warriors with him. And just to put it in perspective, when Saul went hunting, this is in chapter 24, when Saul went hunting David, he had 3,000 men to go after David's 600, right? So in Saul's mind, I need 5 for every one David has, right? That's the quality of the fighters that followed David. David, later on, we'll read about David's mighty men, and these guys are elite, the elite of the elite of the elite. These guys are unbelievably tough guys. And
why wouldn't they be attracted to David, the only one who's willing to stand up to the giant?
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So I don't know if you know this answer, but I know you know the first answer to this question. But how many giant killers were in Saul's army?
In Saul's army?
Yes.
Just David.
But he wasn't in Saul's army. It's a trick question.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the answer is technically 0. Because nobody stood up to Goliath, and David wasn't even technically in Saul's army.
He was immediately after he killed Goliath.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So technically,
because he was put in charge.
So technically, you could argue and say, "Wait a minute."
It depends on when.
You didn't specify when, Zarbaugh.
Yeah. When.
Okay. But here's another question: how many giant killers were in David's army?
Yeah, multiples. He had a couple of giant killers in.
The answer is 6.
6.
Yeah, and the exploits of them are exactly the exploits that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you can go back and read the exploits of the mighty men, and the three were among them. Yeah. But there were 6 giant killers, and why? Because like attracts like.
That's right.
Right. And so if you're an exceptional leader, you're going to be, you're going to attract exceptional leaders. If you're a person of excellence that has the high, bar raised. Listen, if you're in a work environment and you don't do anything right, and you're not, you're how should I say, like morally flexible, right? Then the people who have high morals are not going to stay around you.
That's right.
Right? They're going to leave, because like attracts like. And so, if you want to be an exceptional person, then be around people who are more exceptional than you, right? That's just the way it is. If you want to be a better ping pong player, guess what? Don't play with people who are worse than you. Play with people who are better than you.
Right.
And you're going to become better and sharper. And so that's a good moral of the story right there. Like attracts like, which is why David's army was so exceptional, because David was exceptional.
Right. That's right. So now Solomon, later on, David's son, writes about the idea of, being careful how you negotiate, understanding, hey, sometimes the best thing is to go make peace. Jesus talks about it. Hey, you better count the cost. Before you go to war, what king doesn't sit down and consider, does he have enough to go up against this bigger army or not, right? So in this situation, Nabal's temper, just him being selfish and his temper, get him to the point where he grossly overestimates his own power and grossly underestimates David's. And so David's like, all right, that's it. You just imagine, man, he's brushing the dust off him, going, come on, boys, grab your swords. And not only that, he decides he only needs to take 2/3 of his army. He's leaving 1/3 of his army back just to watch the stuff, right? We don't need all you guys. Come on. And not a single person is going to stand. And so Nabal grossly overestimated his abilities and underestimated David's. But even Jesus talks about, hey, you need to be wise. You need to consider, a wise person considers what's the cost going to be if we go to war, and should we make peace? Jesus on multiple times talks about you should run out and make peace. Go make peace in this situation. And he doesn't. This was a simple thing for Nabal to do, except for the fact that he thought that this was all his rather than a gift from God. And he decided he was going to go against social customs and social norms. And he was going to reject the service that David and his men provided. all those things. And the only one in the whole house that had any intelligence in her at all, the servants came and they skipped Nabal because he's kind of a jerk. And they
Right.
go straight to Abigail and say, Abigail, hey, we're all going to get wiped out unless we do something. And she goes to the pantry and cleans the pantry out and starts heading towards David, which tomorrow we'll pick up the rest of that story.
Yeah,
But,
it's great.
She's the only one with any wisdom in the house.
Yeah. And you know what? This is a great lesson.
Which is pretty much the way it is in my house, too.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Your wife? Yeah, my wife's the better part of me, too. This is a great lesson to not be like Nabal and to be like Jesus taught us, which is like, what would it have cost Nabal to be kind? What would it have really cost him to, share his, his wealth? When you're that blessed and you can't afford to throw, some beggars some crumbs, then what kind of person are you? So Jesus says, in essence, he didn't say these exact words. It's not in the Bible, but like what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
Right. So what is the Old Testament? What the book of Psalms says, roll a stone, get hit with it, dig a pit, fall in it. That's sort of like what goes around comes around.
Proverbs. Yeah.
Proverbs says that. And there's a
Isaiah, cast your bread upon the water, and in due season will come back to
that's
you.
right. And so what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Reciprocity, right? So there's a reciprocity sort of idea that Jesus says: "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Treat your neighbors, love your neighbors as yourself."
What you plant is what you harvest.
What you plant, that's right. What you reap, you're going to sow.
What you sow is what you reap.
Yeah, I get that backwards. Willy Wonka, he always says, Gene Wilder goes, strike that, reverse it. That was me right there.
Go. Yeah.
So anyway, I just think that it's a great lesson for us to, say, a person who doesn't believe in God would say, put it out in the universe,
Sure.
and it'll come back to you. Well, that's just a person who doesn't believe, that they just instinctively know that that's one of God's values, right? To treat others as you would be treated. There's a reciprocity factor about what goes around does come around. So why not? Why would Nabal do the things that he did? Because he's going his circumstances are he's going to find himself against David type armies all the time.
Right.
And that's no way to live.
Right.
Right. So just be kind, be generous. It doesn't take that much effort to be kind.
That's the lesson of the day.
Really, it is.
And it's on the verge of costing him anything.
Right.
Everything. Kindness David would have moved on. Him choosing not to be kind, him choosing not to be generous, put everything that Nabal considered important at risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God calls us to live with open hands.
Yes.
He doesn't call us to live with clenched fists. As God receives, or as God gives, we receive. Do you want to know the cool thing about closed hands versus open hands? Is that when we hang on to all of our stuff, we now have postured ourselves. We're not in a position also to receive from God.
That's right.
Right. So we open up to give, and we also have the same posture to receive from God.
That's right.
And so God calls us not to live like this, but to live like this.
That's right.
And so when we live like that, then we're able to, understand how God wants us to live. So
That's great.
all right. Well, hey, that's our time, and we will see you hopefully next time on the Bible Guys.